It is my honor to present Stephen Curry of the Golden State Warriors with the 2015-2016 Kia Most Valuable Player of the Year Award.
Thank you very much, man.
For him to be that first player to get this unanimously, I think it just tells you how watered down our league is.
You think so?
Yeah, seriously, because think about when MJ played, Shaq. I mean, those guys really played against top-notch competition, more superstars, I think, on more teams than it is in our league today. But it's well-deserved, I mean, because he had a hell of a season.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's the Fifth Avenue Project. Let's get right into it. Steph Curry has won a second consecutive MVP. But what's historical about this achievement is not only is it back-to-back, he's the first unanimous MVP in NBA history. So I just got a text, and my boys are telling me that T-Mac was hating on Steph Curry. And I'm like, T-Mac is a humble dude, laid back, not a rah-rah type of individual. But me, I'm gonna do some fact checks, and I'm gonna check the facts before I make a statement on what somebody else said about the reigning MVP. So it turns out that T-Mac did say that the league is watered down. That's the only reason Steph won the award. So I wanted to make a quick video and ask myself, is T-Mac hating, or is there some truth to what he's saying? Now let's look into it. I always said, if you're going to have an opinion on something, you at least have to have some credentials. That's why I don't like some of the journalists that criticize some athletes. They never played sports in their entire life. They weren't jocks. Not to say that you need to be a jock or professional to have an opinion, but if you're going to criticize very specifically what a player should or shouldn't do, or what he should have, shouldn't have won, I think you need to have some type of credentials. And T-Mac didn't have a lot of playoff success, never won a championship, but he was a superstar for about 7 or 8 years. And the only thing that kind of derailed him was the back issues. A lot of you guys know T-Mac had a lot of issues with the lower back. And for any of you that suffer from back pain, back pain ain't no joke. That should have crippled you. Your back, your knees, those are the two things that a basketball player needs more than anything else. If your knees go or your back is blown out, you can't be effective anymore. It doesn't matter who you are or how gifted you are. But let's stick to the topic in hand. T-Mac said Steph winning a unanimous MVP, the first unanimous MVP, is proof that the NBA is watered down. So there's a couple of questions here. Is T-Mac right? Is the NBA watered down? Is it soft? You hear a lot of people saying it's soft compared to the 80s and 90s and even the early 2000s. Is it soft? And secondly, does Steph deserve a unanimous MVP vote? The second question, that's up in the air because he got all 131 first place votes. Now, most people are going to say, who else do you vote for? The guy won 73 games this year. He averaged 30. He's the seventh member of the 50-40-90 club, which is 50% from the field, 40% from three, and 90% from the line. And he hit over 400 threes. So it's hard to dispute why he shouldn't have won the MVP unanimously. It's difficult because who else would you have chosen? Kawhi finished second, and I believe LeBron and Westbrook and Durant rounded out the top 5. I don't think you could put any of those guys in first place ahead of Steph this year just because of the impact he had. But still, a lot of people are saying, Tracy is salty, he's jealous, Oscar Robinson, all these guys are making comments on Steph, and it does sound like saltiness, but I think we need to just first look at the player who's saying it. Now, Tracy McGrady is no scrub. Like I said before, he had about 7 or 8 years where he was a dominant scorer, an incredible playmaker. If you guys remember, he had bad luck in Orlando as well as Houston. In Orlando, it was supposed to be him and Grant Hill. A lot of you guys know Grant Hill was a top 5 player for a long time in the league. I mean, in the mid to late 90s and early 2000s, I would say mid to late 90s, not the 2000s, because that's when his ankle got injured. Had it not been for Grant Hill's devastating ankle injury, it would have been T-Mac and Grant Hill for 7, 8 years in Orlando. I want you guys, for all you young bucks out there, look at what Grant Hill was and how dominant of a player he was. Now, he wasn't going to drop 50, 60 points, but he was just like a playmaker. He was LeBron before LeBron. And a lot of you young cats might go, Grant Hill wasn't that good. Who's Grant Hill? You remember him in Phoenix when he was 38, 39 years old playing with Steve Nash. But Grant Hill was nasty. He set up his teammates. He made his teammates better. He can score on anybody. He had quickness. He had hops. He played pretty solid defense. Not great, but pretty solid defense. And he was just a leader on the floor. And when he got injured in, I believe, what was it, 2000, 2001? I felt for all the Detroit Pistons fans and the Orlando Magic fans, because that's where he signed up with Orlando, and it was supposed to be him and T-Mac. And I always say to myself, damn, if T-Mac, with the way he was balling in Orlando in his prime years, and Grant Hill coming into his prime, that would have been scary for the East. That would have been in the early 2000s. I mean, who was there? Who would have stopped them in the early 2000s? You had Milwaukee with Ray Allen, Sam Cassell. You had Iverson with his 76ers. But I still think T-Mac and Grant Hill working together on Orlando, and if they would have had, some more draft picks and signed some more players through free agency, Orlando could have been an incredible team. Unfortunately, that didn't work out. Eventually, T-Mac went to the Rockets. Grant Hill just never came back from those injuries, the ankle injuries, and he had later got a staph infection. He had multiple ankle surgeries. Guys, look this up, man. This is very important for you guys to understand where T-Mac is coming from. All right. So he looked at that as a blown opportunity. He did win 2 scoring titles while in Orlando, just dominating the league. I think he averaged over 30 a couple of times. And T-Mac was an incredible playmaker. He was basically a more offensive oriented version of Grant Hill. If you could picture that. He had more range. He shot the 3 ball while Grant didn't. A little bit more explosive, had more range. He was longer. Grant Hill was probably slightly more intelligent on the court, but they would have worked together. But T-Mac saw that as a blown opportunity. He goes to the Rockets. He suffers from back issues himself. Then Yao Ming later on has to retire from foot injuries. So injuries plagued his career either directly or indirectly. So I don't want you guys to say, hey, T-Mac never won a ring. Who's the scrub? And I hear a lot of young cats saying that. Who's T-Mac to make a comment like that? T-Mac was a superstar in the league. Not a star, not an all-star, superstar talent. Anybody would tell you prime T-Mac, when fully motivated, was as good as anybody out there. I mean, there was no stopping T-Mac. It's just that he played on a not-so-talented Orlando squad. He played on that team that was supposed to feature another superstar. That didn't happen. They were coached by Doc Rivers, but that didn't help much. And then in Orlando, he was plagued by back injuries. So T-Mac is looking at all his lost opportunities. But that doesn't take away from the fact that lost opportunities, injuries, whatever, T-Mac has a right to say what he wants to say. Now, I don't think he should have put Steph on blast in terms of following up a back-to-back MVP. The back-to-back MVP needs a little bit more respect than, hey, it's watered down. It's true, but maybe he should have put it in a different context. Because if somebody asks you, what do you think about Steph winning unanimous? And then you say, oh, it's because the league is watered down. Steph can't help the era he plays in. And the league may be watered down in terms of what you can and can't do, but there's some talented dudes out there. You got KD, you got Westbrook, you got Damian Lillard, you got LeBron, of course, you got Anthony Davis. I mean, you got some dudes that could ball. I'm not saying they're top 10 all-time great players, but they're some talented motherfuckers, you know what I'm saying? So I don't like the word watered down, but the league is not as strong as it used to be in terms of the physicality of the game. I mean, there's things right now that perimeter players are doing that you could not get away with in the 80s and 90s. And this is not, I ain't old. I'm not an old ass guy in my 50s and 60s. I'm not, a grumpy old man reminiscing on old basketball. It's just the truth. I mean, in the 80s, 90s, a lot of these perimeter players now getting buckets would not have half the success. Is just the truth. And I think that's where T-Mac's mind frame is coming from. A lot of these players you seeing averaging what they're averaging, they will be greatly affected by the physicality of the game. And I think a lot of players feel like T-Mac does, because for T-Mac to make such a statement, the NBA is a family. And a lot of you guys hear NBA guys say it all the time. We're a family. I guarantee when he won unanimously, T-Mac spoke with other ex-NBA players and current NBA players about the unanimous first time ever in the history of basketball, unanimous MVP. A lot of guys are going to say, hey, Kareem couldn't even do that. Shaq couldn't even do that. Jordan, Olajuwon, David Robinson, all these guys never got unanimous. And they had some dominant years. So for Steph to do it shows that there's nobody really in his class. That could either mean Steph is that good where he separated himself where there's nobody even in his class, or it could just mean that nobody's stepping up to the plate to challenge him like in the 80s and the 90s. Because you always had a rival. Magic had Bird, Jordan had Bird, Magic, Isaiah, Peyton, Barkley. I mean, everybody was coming at him. And the Lakers went at it with the Spurs for a couple of years. So you always had a rival. Who's Steph's rival right now? It's supposed to be LeBron. They in separate conferences, but LeBron has to step up to the plate. And when he had a chance to do it twice this year, it's the regular season, but they got embarrassed at home and they lost in Golden State. Now that story is still waiting to be told. LeBron could possibly face Golden State in the finals and get revenge for what happened last year. But let's get back to the title. Is the NBA watered down? I think the NBA, the rules are helping perimeter players. Yes, I do believe that. I just think the timing of T-Mac's statement was off. But I don't think what he's saying is wrong. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this. I don't think what he's saying is wrong. Did Steph deserve the MVP? Hell yeah. He deserves it. Is who are you going to put in front of him this year as most valuable player? I mean, it's really hard to say. I mean, Kawhi was right there, but Steph's impact on the game he just changes everything. Just him being on the floor changes all the defensive schemes. Just him being there. He doesn't even have to always shoot, but the threat of him from long range this has teams in disarray as soon as he crosses half court. So you got to respect that. And then when you factor in, he can actually play make off the dribble with the handle. He's a good leader. He led the league in steals, or he was tied for, not to say he's a great defender, but averaging 2.1 steals. The last person who did that, I think it was Iverson and Mike Jordan. Those are the last two players that average 30 and then lead the league in steals. That's you got to tip your hat. But I don't think T-Mac was wrong in saying that the NBA is watered down. The NBA is watered down in the sense that the game has softened up due to the new rules. We know all about defensive 3-second now, no hand checking, any hard foul is reviewed. The fucking officials go to the review monitor like 10 times a game. The minute you hit somebody hard, they go to the review monitor. Oh, was it a flagrant 1, flagrant 2? Back in the day, that was a play on. You hit somebody, bang, that was a play on. Now it's like you hit somebody, oh, flagrant 2, you're out of the game. I mean, I remember Rasheed Wallace was getting thrown out of games just for yapping to the ref. Back in the day, that was a play on. That was a play on. You could dunk on somebody back in the day and stare at them and talk shit. Y'all remember Sean Kemp dunking at on somebody? Well, who was it? Chris Gatlin? Pointed at the nigga. You know what I'm saying? And then it wasn't nothing. It was a play on. Now, if you dunk on somebody and stare at them, that's a technical. If you dunk on somebody and shout like, yeah, so it is a softer league. For sure, it's a softer league. Watered down. maybe not the right word. Softer, yes. Watered down, I don't know. There's a lot of talented niggas. There's a lot of talented people. So I just wanna throw that out there, see what you guys thought about that. Is Tracy McGrady right? Is T-Mac right when he says Steph is only unanimous because the league is watered down? What do you guys think? Is Tracy McGrady right in his findings on Steph is let me guys know what you think. No fanboy shit. Just be honest and try to do a little research before you make a comment, because a lot of times, you know, you're gonna have the Steph Curry fans, you're gonna have the T-Mac fans, and you're gonna have the people that don't even watch basketball just make a stupid comment. Just try to look into it a little bit and understand where he's coming from. Was he right? And should he have said it a day after Steph won the award? Is it hating? Is it truth? Is it a little bit of both? Let me know what you guys think. All right, I'm out.
And he ties the NBA record with his 12th three-pointer of the game.
Westbrook gets off a decent look. The banker